today. This is my first report on Calculus 2. So for today's discussion, let's tackle about what is limits. First, let's define again what is limits. So limits in mathematics, limits is the value that a function approaches as the input approaches some value. So limits suggest a boundary that may be reached or not, or possibly existed. This handout focuses on determining limits analytical and determining limits by looking at the graph. The idea of a limit is the basis of all calculus. So limits are the essentials to calculus and mathematical analysis and are used to define the continuity, the derivatives, and the integrals. So here is the symbol of limits. What limit symbol means? So the symbol lim means we're taking a limit of something. The expression to the right of lim is the expression we're taking the lim of. So in our case, that's a function f. The expression of x approaches to 3x or to 3x approaches to 3 that comes below lim means that we take the limits of a function as the values of x approach to 3. That is what our symbol of limits means. So now, our limits had the existence. The limits of f as x approaches to a may not exist. If f of x becomes infinitely large or infinitely small as x approaches to the number a from either side. So we have this one. Lim of f of x as x approaches to a is equals to infinity. Or lim f of x as x approaches to a is equals to negative infinity. And this is the graph. Another one is f is limits f of x as approaches to a is equal to L, and lim f of x as x approaches to a is equal to m, then L is not equal to m. Then limits f of x as x approaches to a does not exist, and this is the graph. Okay. Now, for more information, our limits have the laws. So there are many laws na connect to our limit. So the first one is the limit of a sum is equal to the sum of the limits. So this one. Limits of a sum is equal to the sum of the limits. The second one is the limit of the differences is equal to the differences of the limits. And this one. And the third one is the limits of the constant times a function is equal to the constant times the limits of the function. Here, this one. Our C here is our constant. And then next one is the limit of a product is equal to the product of the limits. This one. Next, the limit of a quotient is equal to the quotient of the limit. Wherein is a positive integers, it will come up in here. The limit of a constant function is equal to the constant. This one. Our C is our constant. The limit of the line of function is equal to the number x is approaching. This one. Our A here, our x is approaches to a is our real number or real value or any real number. Then when n is a positive integers, we can come up in this. Where n is a positive integers, if n is even, we assume that a is greater than 0, this one. Where n is a positive integers, if n is even, we assume that lim quantity of x greater than 0 is as x approaches to a, and we can come up in this one. So that is all about for our limits. I hope you have learned and for what is limits or what are the laws of limits. Thank you for listening.